Welcome back to KeeleSports. Still joined here with my friend Scott, helping me break down the NBA playoffs. We already went through the Eastern Conference, and now we're looking to talk about the Western Conference. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Fire away.
All right, we're going to start again with the 4-5 matchup, the Portland Trailblazers versus the Memphis Grizzlies. I really like Mike Conley and Marc Gasol. I think they're probably two of the top 5 most underrated players in the league for me. I think that alongside Zach Randolph, Tony Allen, Courtney Lee, I really like the starting 5 of the Memphis Grizzlies. I think at full health, they're probably one of the best teams in the whole NBA. I know there's question marks with Conley and Allen's health, but Portland will also be without Wesley Matthews. So even though I'm not sure about Conley and Allen's health, I've still given this one to the Grizzlies. I'm going to say in 6 games.
I don't even think it's going to take 6. I think this series has so much ugly. So much ugly. In fact, I think your injury report needs to include Afflalo. I think Afflalo's out for at least the beginning of the first round as well. And it's going to be an ugly series between two teams that are not at full strength and really, really bad. I think it's going to be the Grizzlies in 5 games, and I think that because I mentioned in the Eastern playoffs where we talked about that Portland misses a lot of shots. They rebound a lot, but they rebound a lot because they have to. They rebound a lot because they have to stay close to the boards when guys like Damian Lillard just go into full takeover mode. And the Grizzlies aren't that way. If the Grizzlies can control the pace, they play at a slower pace, they play tighter defense, and I just don't see Portland without Wes Matthews, without Aaron Afflalo, doing any damage against the Grizzlies. Although, honestly, for Portland, that's a really good thing because both of those guys are up for new contracts, and so with big injury question marks, next year they may get one or both of them back relatively inexpensively and be able to go deeper in the playoffs. I just don't think this is their year.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I looked this up, the Grizzlies swept the season series 4-0 over Portland as well, so I think a big matchup problem. I think you're right. All right, moving on to the 3-6 matchup, Los Angeles Clippers and the San Antonio Spurs. Okay, I'm a really big Chris Paul fan. I think he's a good defensive player. I think he should be more talked about for a candidate for MVP this year. I'm a really big DeAndre Jordan fan. I was making an all top 5 team, and DeAndre Jordan was one of my centers I might want. I really like him.
The whole NBA right now?
I don't think it would be him, but I was considering. I had him in consideration. Okay. He's a great defensive player. He's really good with blocking, and just with the team I was kind of creating, I wanted somebody who wouldn't take a lot of shots, who could really just hold down the defense, get rebounds. But I really like him. I really like Chris Paul. I really like Doc Rivers. A couple of years ago, I thought he should have been more talked about for Coach of the Year. I really like him a lot. But I cannot and will not bet against Greg Popovich. Even though the Clippers, they have home court advantage, I really like their team. I'm going to have to go with the Spurs here. I think their coach is too good. I think the Spurs team is too experienced, too talented, too deep, and overall just too well coached. I think Popovich will get the best of Doc Rivers. I remember just a few games ago, the Spurs were playing the Rockets in like a playoff-like atmosphere, and they won. I believe it was in Houston. And one of the ways they won was they were fouling Josh Smith a lot to keep the ball out of James Harden's hand. He was a pretty poor free throw shooter, and they won the game. And I think that if you think that hack of Josh Smith was really effective, just imagine hack of DeAndre Jordan. He has one of the worst free throw percentages in the entire league. I think Greg Popovich is going to find a way to beat the Clippers, whether it be fouling DeAndre Jordan every play or exploiting other matchup problems that they have. I really like a lot of the Spurs players on that team. Kawhi Leonard, I think will do well. I think the Spurs are going to win in 6. What do you think?
I don't think the Spurs are going to win, although I want to say that they will. We talked about in the East that the ball movement that the Hawks have is going to be a huge thing for them. The Spurs have a top 3-point differential in the league, and they've only played with their their favored lineup, their favored starting five, I think, like 25 games this year and won 85% of those games. So they're a tough matchup at full strength. I think the difference is the big reason the Clippers didn't advance farther last year is because of all the tension that happened around Donald Sterling and hit the videos that came out through TMZ, and it was a big distraction for them. They ended up getting wiped out. I think this year they're far more motivated. They do have home court advantage, and you talked about the Spurs winning in a playoff atmosphere, but Josh Smith is no DeAndre Jordan in the sense that the Pistons are paying Josh Smith,
The Rockets.
No, the Pistons, because they waived him.
Oh, you're right.
They waived him, and they're paying him something like $40 million to not play for their team. He takes terrible shots. He has awful judgment. DeAndre Jordan, exactly like you talked about. I don't love DeAndre Jordan, and I don't love the Clippers. But you can't argue with the fact that the Clippers have Chris Paul, who the Spurs can't answer for.
Mm-hmm.
And they have Blake Griffin. I don't see... I mentioned the Spurs have a top 3 point differential. The only teams above them are the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors, who we'll get to. But the Clippers are just, at home they're good. They have a good record. They move the ball well, and Chris Paul really can take over a quarter. And if he can do that in a way that demonstrates all the abilities that he has, I just don't see... I don't know. It's going to go to 7 games either way. But I see Chris Paul helping the Clippers pull it out against the Spurs.
Yeah, I would love to see the Clippers win, but I think especially if it goes to Game 7, I think the Spurs will have the advantage. They played in lots of Game 7s, Greg Popovich, but great stats, and I would love it if the Clippers won, for sure.
And see, I would hate it, but I don't think the difference between Popovich and Rivers is that big.
I do like.
They've both won championships. They've both been in those situations before, and especially in a first round where it's a do or die, and where DeAndre Jordan realizes that if the Clippers lose this series, they have to shake something up, because it's obviously not a winning formula. They've reached their glass ceiling if they lose this first round. Whereas I think for the Spurs, they won it all last year. They've established very clearly who they are. I just think that, and I know this argument has been made a million times, I think they have too many miles on them to keep going all the way.
Yeah. That's great points again. And the last thing I'll say is I remember at the beginning of the year, Tim Duncan said what was motivating him was he's never repeated as an NBA championship. So I think there is still some motivation there. But I think you're definitely right about the Clippers having a lot of motivation as well.
Yeah.
Moving on to the the 2-7 matchup, Houston Rockets versus Dallas Mavericks. This one's my upset here, and I think the Mavericks are going to pull this one out, and I have a lot of reasons because I feel like this is kind of a big upset here. I have 5 reasons why I think the Mavericks are going to beat the Rockets. Number 1. I remember last year, Dallas Mavericks barely made the playoffs as an 8 seed. They barely got in, and they had to play against the number 1 seed San Antonio Spurs, who eventually ended up winning the whole thing. But these Mavericks really pulled it together just in time for the playoffs. They had an intense 7-game series, and they were by far the hardest series for the Spurs for the rest of the playoffs. Nobody else pushed the Spurs to 7 games. All the games are really close, so I think the Mavericks are not intimidated by a higher seed, and I think that they have the experience and the confidence to win when they don't have the home court advantage. Second of all, I think that this Dallas team is led by guys with rings on their fingers. They got Tyson Chandler, they got Dirk Nowitzki, they got Rajon Rondo, their coach Rick Carlisle. They've all been there. They've all won the whole thing. They have experience. Their other 2 starters, besides those 3 guys I mentioned, Chandler Parsons and Monte Ellis, are also very talented, very experienced. They have a starting 5 who I feel like really know what they're doing. I know there's been a lot of weird stuff going on with Dallas, people calling each other out. I think they're going to be able to put all that behind them, realize this is their chance to make a deep run into the playoffs, make a real chance for a championship run. And I think these guys are just too experienced and too professional to let any hard feelings or anything like that get in the way. I think they're going to be able to put that behind them. Third point, I have a history right here of the last 18 years of Rocket history.
Yep,
I'm going to run through that here. Starting all the way back in 1997, lost in the first round, miss playoffs, lost in the first round, missed the playoffs, lost in the first round, won the first round, and then lost in the second round, missed playoff, lost in the first round. So this Rockets team always loses in the first round, right? They do not pass the first round one time in the last 18 years, only to lose in the next round. And these have been good teams. They've been favored in a lot of these games. These are teams going all the way back to Charles Barkley his last 3 or 4 years. Going back, you've got Steve Francis, Tracy McGrady, Yao Ming, and then even last year's team that is pretty much the same as this year's team. You had James Harden, Dwight Howard, you had all those guys, and they had the home court advantage last year, and they lost in 6 games to Portland. I just feel like this history is against the Rockets here on this one. I think all the pressure here is on the Rockets to win, to get past the first round at least. And I think Dallas, they have no pressure. They won before. They know how to do it. I think that could be a big factor. Point 4, the Rockets aren't even fully healthy. They don't have Patrick Beverley. They're kind of banged up. And point 5, the Rockets have been living all year from the free throw line. James Harden has 200 more free throw attempts than second place Russell Westbrook. And he has 300 more free throw attempts than anybody else. So he's just been getting to the line, all season line. He has more free throws made than James Harden and Steph Curry combined. I think in the playoffs, ticky-tack calls are called less. Refs seem to swallow their whistle more, let the players play. I think that if James Harden struggles to get to the free throw line like he's been able to do all season long, the Rockets could have some real trouble scoring enough points to beat the Dallas Mavericks. What do you think? Do you think Dallas is going to make me look smart, or do you think that the Rockets are going to win this one?
I know I talk about coaches a lot, but if there's a coach that can make you look smart, it's Rick Carlisle. But he's not going to make you look smart. The first thing that jumped out to me of your 5 reasons is you picked the last 18 years. You know what happened the 2 years that you left out right before those 2?
Yes.
They won the championship back-to-back.
Yes.
So
Hakeem Olajuwon.
Right, Hakeem Olajuwon's pretty good. They've got a pretty decent big man right now, Dwight Howard, you may have heard of him. And even though he's been on the decline the last few years, he's been to the finals. He's a big important piece that is different from some of these previous teams because he knows what it takes to get there. And I know he was there last year. I know that they've got other things that they're working with, but this is the number 2 seed in the West. In the West, you know, they've put in the time. They're doing pretty good for themselves. The Rockets are 30-11 at home. I don't see, with home court advantage, I don't see them winning or losing 2 games at home that they'd have to. Because if this series is going to go long enough for the Rockets to lose, it would require them to lose at least twice at home. Because I don't think that Dallas will win all of their home. Yeah, all 3 home games available to them. I mean, they were 27-14, which isn't a huge jump, but you win 30 games at home and you start talking about some historically dominant territory. You also have the Rockets coming in at 7-3 in their last 10 games, and the Mavericks are not that way. They were 5-5 over the last 10. In fact, the only team that limped worse into the playoffs was Portland, and they were 4 of their last 6 they've lost 4 straight and 6 of their last 10. Mm-hmm. So they're in trouble.
And I'm just going to throw this out really quick.
Sure.
I think the Mavericks have had the 7th seed locked up for a while. I don't know how hard they were playing. Maybe perhaps they were keeping themselves fresh for the playoffs. I don't know.
And it's possible. But think about playoffs in any other sport. You have a lot of times where as soon as you start saying, okay, these games don't matter, you give up on them. But that number 2 seed was up for quite a while, and the Rockets had to play incredibly hard through the end to get home court advantage. I don't see anyone stopping James Harden at all. I think he should be the second runner-up for the MVP. I think Steph Curry is the MVP. But
we definitely agree on that.
He's right there. He has played incredibly well. He's started trying on defense, which is a big deal to them. And you also have to consider the fact that the Rockets shoot free throws pretty well outside of Josh Smith, he's a terrible free throw shooter.
And Dwight Howard,
And Dwight Howard's not great. But there are other guys. They've got a lot of guys that penetrate and get to the line. They, as a team, shoot a lot of free throws. And a big part of that is James Harden. But you don't shoot 200 more free throws by getting all the ticky-tack calls. Even if some of those calls go away and they let them play a little bit more, you
still think they're going to find a way to get to the
I do,
free throw
and
line?
I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be the Rockets in 5, maybe 6 games. And I know I haven't predicted an upset. I know I'm not going to predict an upset. But some of the top teams are the top teams for a reason.
Yeah.
If there is an upset to happen, it's probably the Spurs, or the Bucks. But those top teams, the Rockets have played really, really well as a team all year. And yeah, they lost Chandler Parsons, but Trevor Ariza has more than made up the difference. Their defense is coming together very nicely, I think.
All right. Well, again, great information. We're going to go to the last one here. Golden State Warriors and New Orleans Pelicans. Here's the stat you and me were talking about before the show started. 10 teams all-time have ever finished with 67 wins or more, and 7 of the last 9 have gone on to win the NBA championship. I see the Warriors as a team that's talented all over the place. Draymond Green, Andrew Bogut, David Lee, Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, the Splash Brothers, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and others. Not only do I think the Warriors are a much better team all up and down, but I also think the matchup is in favor of the Golden State Warriors. One of the things the Pelicans have going for them is Anthony Davis is great at protecting the paint, but when I watch the Golden State Warriors, I see a team who can win outside of the paint if they have to with no problem. So I just think that not only are they way more talented than the Pelicans, who barely got into the playoffs, but also the matchup is in favor of the Warriors. And if an 8 team is going to upset a 1 team, it's going to be because of matchup problems, I think. So I think again, I'm going to give maybe the Pelicans 1 game, like I gave to the Celtics and some other teams. But I think the Warriors are definitely going to win this series in 5. So what do you think? Over or under 1 win for Anthony Davis?
Under 1 win. Anthony Davis and the Pelicans snuck into the playoffs because Kevin Durant was injured. If Kevin Durant plays this season, the whole West is a totally different thing. And if they do reseeding for the playoffs, like I think they should, and hopefully in the next year or 2 they will, the Pelicans are, even then, the Pelicans are not in a position to do great in the playoffs. The Pelicans are one of those teams that put a lot of their chips on the table to get guys like Omer Asik and Tyreek Evans from the Kings, and this is kind of their ceiling right now. This is as good as they were. They played really strong most of the year, and they're not going to get dramatically better than they are right now with the team that they have. On the other side of that, the Warriors are historically good. I mean, one of the top 10 finishes for a team ever, as you mentioned. They have almost double the point differential of any other team in the league. They don't have to score from the inside. In fact, I witnessed, as a Sacramento Kings fan, Klay Thompson scoring 37 points in 1 quarter.
Yep.
In 1 quarter! I can't see anyone coming close to them. The Golden State Warriors have a beautiful, pristine path straight to the Western Conference Finals. And it's going to be a bloodbath between those seeds that are 2 through 7, or 2 and 3, and then 6 and 7. Whoever comes out of those seeds gets to play the Warriors, and it's just going to be no one can stop them.
Yeah.
They have shown all year that they are the best team, and it's going to take a Herculean effort that the Pelicans just don't have in them. I don't think they win 1. In addition to the fact that the Golden State Warriors, if the Pelicans won 1, it would be at home. But the Warriors are 39-2 at home. Yeah. They've lost 2 home games all year, and they're not going to lose 1 to the Pelicans in the playoffs. Not when they've shortened their rotation. Not when Steve Kerr, Coach of the Year candidate, is really driving them to focus. This is a team with the best assist ratio in the NBA. They move the ball well. They handle the ball incredibly well. They play great defense. Everything about this team screams, we're an NBA champion. Because if any other team that traditionally has been good, someone like, Derrick Rose being with the Bulls. If he's there all year and they put up the numbers the Warriors put up, everyone calls them the title favorites. The Cavaliers, if they're putting up those numbers, everyone calls them the title favorites. The only thing that they have against them is a lack of experience. But Steve Kerr has been on some pretty good teams and knows what it takes to focus and lock in. And I just don't see anyone beating them. I see them sweeping their first 2 series and probably winning in 5 or 6 in their second.
Wow.
Yeah. So, or in their third.
Yeah.
So I don't see any chance for the Pelicans. They've played good basketball. Anthony Davis has put up historically good numbers, and he will continue to play well against the Warriors, who are a surprisingly good defensive team as well as offensive team.
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony Davis can't do it alone, and he can't do it alone even enough to win one game, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Great stats. Great information. Scott, thank you so much for coming and joining and talking with me today. I love hearing your thoughts. I love hearing your research. You're super good at what you do.
Thank you.
And I love talking sports with you. It's been a great pleasure, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.